Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. We're learning Maseches Nazir Daf Ches. Today we're going to be learning what will end up being a shorter blot. We're starting 3 lines from the top of Ches Mid Aleph, and we're going to stop at the Mishnah 2/3 of the way down on Ches Mid Beis. And we're actually in the middle of a brisa. We've been discussing over the last many days this principle of unspecified funds when a part of those unspecified funds represents a chatas. Because a chatas in general can't be given for an adava, because an adava is given out of the goodness of my heart, and a chatas is triggered by my poor behavior. So they should never be able to mix. But there's a halacha l'moshe misinai that unspecified funds are able to be yiplul in adava when it comes to a chatas, and we're going to question that. We're halfway through a brisa. We don't need to begin at the beginning of the brisa because what we need is actually in the second half of the brisa, which is where we are. And says the Gemara, Nazir Kav Ches Amid Aleph, 3 lines down. Yachol, you might have thought lo yetze b'moos shehifrish. You might have thought that with money that had been set aside, and you need to bring a korban that money was not set aside for. You might have thought you would not be yotze afilu min hakala ala kala, even if it was for the same exact purpose. For the light avera that you did, eating chaylev is deemed to be a lighter avera, for example, or mina chamura la chamura, or eating basar b'chala, which is a higher level isser. Aval yotze, you might have thought that you are going to be yotze bekorban shehifrish la'atzmo, an animal that you set aside for your own korbanos, min hakala la chamura, mina chamura la kala, even if it's not the same level. Talmud lomar, yet another word, korbano al chataso, but here we're focusing on chataso. Korbano l'shum chatao. It has to match. It has to match. It has to be a korban that you separated for this avera, not a predetermined one. It has to match. It has to be all aligned. And in the next part of the brisa, our question is still another 10 lines away. Yachol lo yetze, maybe okay, fine. You're not yotza bebehema sheifrish la'atzmo min hakala lakala min hachamura lachamura. That if an animal is separated, you cannot use it. Even if it is on the same level, you separated an animal for a small avera, and you're using it for a small avera, or for you separated an animal for a severe avera, and that's what you're using it for. But maybe afilu min akala ala chamur la chamur la kala shekenim hifrish behema al hachela behevi al hadam or al adam behevi al hachela. If that doesn't work, sharei lo ma'al velo kiper, you would not violate me'ila there, and you get no kapara. So we even see over there that there's no transference. You can't use functionally; it doesn't work. You can't take an animal that was separated for chelev and use it for dam. Dam is a much bigger avera. Aval maybe havamina, maybe that yotze we would be able to use mos, but mos shehifrish la'atzmo. Maybe I can separate money mina kala lekala, mina chamur lechamur. I separated money for my iser for the chatas for my chelev, and that's what I want to use it for. Mina chamur lekala, mina kala lechamura. Why would that work? Shekain im hifrish la'atzmo mos mina chelev behevi al adam. Al hadam baby al achelev shari ma'al v'kiper. There with money we would have kapara. Talmud lomar that doesn't work. Al chataso ad sheyehei korbano l'shem cheto. We have to have an alignment. It has to be that the korban, the money that you are going to be using for your korban is matching your chet. Now, very lengthy brisa, and we're going to be picking up on one line that we mentioned a little bit earlier in the brisa. Katani, we're 2/3 of the way down in Kav Ches Amid Aleph. We did learn in the brisa Katani Mihas. We learned that we're talking about a behema, and our behema, we see no distinction in this Mishnah over here in this brisa as to whether or not this behema was an animal that was a tamima or an animal that was a balmum. Remember our conversations from yesterday. If I separate animals that are tamimos, then there's no such thing as stumin. That's not unspecified. But 1, 2, 3, chatas olashlam. That's not called unspecified. That's absolutely specified. But maybe havamina that if it's the animal is a balmum, then maybe we look at it just as a collateral. I'm just setting aside that which is equivalent to money, and maybe that should be stumos. My lava filu ba'alasmum. Maybe we should assume that we're talking even about a case of a balmum. Says Gemara, no, the Brisa is talking even only about a tamima. Aval ba'alasmum my kistuma damya. You're going to say the ba'alasmum that they're like a stam. My area de katani ma'oshi frishaviv. If that's true, that the Ba'alas mum is considered to be unspecified. Why did our Mishnah only talk about money? We know that money is unspecified. The bigger chiddush would have been to talk about the case of an animal which is a balmum or any other type of collateral. Why don't we do that? Says the Gemara, we should have said lisni ba'alas mum. That would have been a more mechudash way to phrase the Mishnah. Yet we don't see that. So therefore, says the Gemara, hachinami, we could have done that. But after all, what is it that these animals are worth? L'dmei, they're only talking about money, and dmei hainu mos. It's all the same thing. They're one and the same thing. These animals that are set aside, that are baalei mum, They are halachically no different than money. We could have said it. We didn't say it, but we could have said it because they're halachically the same.
So they're just sitting like off in the pen, not doing any work, not doing anything.
These animals are ba'alei mum, and I say, these animals in the pen are for my korbanos for Nazirus. Now, obviously, I can't bring them as korbanos because they have mumin. So we look at them instead as their financial value.
So can you use them while they're being as fun?
That's a great question. It's a great question, but you can't be makdish them. They're not korban worthy. So there's no isser of working those animals or using those animals.
No, but you in theory could ruin the value. You could lower the value of the animal.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to your question. I'm guessing it's going to be that the amount that they're worth when you appoint them is what? Yeah. Whatever the market value was on January 1st, that's what it's going to be, I would imagine. And whatever depreciation there is, we ignore. I don't know. I'm guessing. It could be. Maybe it's the exact opposite. Maybe it's the day that you cash out. I don't know. But I presume it's on the day that because on that day, I need to set aside enough animals to cover my Nazirus korban. It'll be 4 of those animals. All right. So you set aside 4 with the knowledge that I have to cover these 3 animals. I presume that's what it is.
And I think if the animal was worth less, when he went to sell it to get the money for the other ones, then he would just have to make up the difference probably.
He has to make up the difference.
And opposite, he could probably keep the money.
Yeah, probably. Assuming that we're right, that the determination of the value of those animals is on the day that he sets them aside. Assuming that we're right, then I would agree with that conclusion. But I'm just guessing about that assumption. I think it's right. Sounds right. New Mishnah. A woman accepts Nazirus upon herself, and husband comes home from work. Hey, where's mom? Oh, she's actually bringing korbanos in the Beis Hamikdash for a Nazirus that you didn't even know she had. And he's irate. He storms out and he runs to the Beis Hamikdash to stop her. At what point in the process of Hakravas HaKorbanos is it too late to stop her? That's what this mission is discussing. When they go home, they'll stop at the marriage counseling. They'll figure everything out. But for now, let's just deal with the local issue. 8 lines from the bottom. Nizrak aleha echad min hadamim. If one of the animals was not only slaughtered, but there was rikas adam, eno yochel lahafim. The husband no longer has the capacity to be mefer her nazirus. Rabbi Kiva Omer, even at an earlier point, afilu nishrita le'achas mikol behemos, even if the shchita was done, even though the zrikas hadam was not done, Rabbi Kiva says you've lost your window of opportunity. And we'll see in the Gemara, we understand the first opinion, we understand the Tanna Kama why you can't be mefer, because once the zrikas hadam happens, her nazirus is over. What are you being mefer? You can't be mefer something that's been completed already. That's done. You have to be able to. You can only be mefer while it actually still exists. So therefore,
so she made a vow of Nazirus, and then she brought korbanos.
She did a Nazirus. She did a stam Nazirus, 30 days. She brings her korbanos, and as she's walking into the Beis Hamikdash, her husband storms in as the Kohen is doing Zrikas Adam. That's it. He can no longer do Hafara. Rabbi Akiva says it's a slightly earlier point because we know that Shchita has 4 parts. It's Shchita, Kabbalas Adam, Holacha, and Zrika. Those are the 4 steps. So according to this approach, Tanna Kama says the final step of Zrika, animal number 1, then the husband can no longer be mefer. But according to Rabbi Akiva, it's actually the first step, which is Shchita. And it's a little bit of a kasha. Rabbi Akiva, we'll see in the Gemara why he holds this way. But according to Rabbi Akiva, she still has restrictions until Zrikas Adam. So if she still has restrictions of wine, why can't he be mefer? And we'll deal with that in the Gemara. But that's an open question on Rabbi Akiva at this point. Then the Mishnah continues. In what case are we talking about? Bitiglachas hatara. We're only talking about the haircut to get out of the actual Nazirus. That's at the end. Aval bitiglachas hatuma. But if the hair cutting that we're talking about is by Tuma, but after she became Tmei in the midst of her Nazirus, then Yafer for sure, because the Nazirus is not over yet. Shehu Yachol Omar, Ef she be'isha minavelis. He's still able to complain and say, I can't be with this woman who's disgusting. Now, what are you thinking? She's disgusting because of her hair. Take a look at Rashi, or whoever it is, the Rivan. First one on the Mishnah, 12 lines from the bottom. It's disgusting if your wife doesn't drink wine. Disgusting. Unacceptable.
ArtScroll translated as abstinent.
Yeah, that's because the ArtScroll uses words that we don't use. I mean, I know what the word abstinent means. We typically use it in a different frame of reference, but the ArtScroll chooses to use it by one.
No, it's just an interesting.
Yeah,
use of the word.
Yeah, it is an interesting. I mean, the word is appropriate in modern English. It's just not the way we use it socially.
Not the way we use it.
You look perturbed. Yeah, but what? But yeah, it's an odd. Yeah, it's a negative if you don't drink wine. We don't believe in rejecting the pleasures of the world. We believe in embracing them. Yeah, no.
When we have a case of a sota.
Yeah.
Everybody that's there with the witness has to become a Nazir because they realize how much damage.
That we learned already. Kol haroes sota bikil kula yazir atzmo min hayan.
Right. So here is the exact opposite. The husband saying, no,
You have to drink. And she's a menuvelis.
Right.
Stark.
It's so interesting.
Which means that there's in hashkafa and probably in halacha, there is a very fine line between drinking one glass of wine and drinking the bottle of wine. There has to be somewhere between those 2 points. There's a stopping point. When I was in the Gris Kolo, we were there for 3 years. In the first 2 years, we had a rule that if you're at a Purim Suda that's co-ed, no alcohol. That was we just had all of us were like that. It was like we were like Bali Shita. There was a couple of Yechidim who got slammed, but Derech Klal, we were pretty firm about it. Like we're like just married. We barely know each other. No drinking in this type of dynamic. That's how. Okay, so he's a menuveles, and therefore the husband still has the right to do hafara. Rebbe or Rebbe Meir, depending on the girsa. Rebbe Meir Omer af betiglacha satara yafer. He can even get a hair. Say that he can do hafara, even if the haircut that we're talking about isn't the one about the tumah, but the one about the end of Nazirus. Shehu yachol omar yefshi beisha megalachas. I don't want my wife to have a shaved head. So even though the korbanos were brought already, he says, wait, I can still do hafara because she's about to go shave her head. And that's not my cup of tea. And therefore, I'm going to do hafara. Afal pi, that the restrictions of wine are now gone and tumas hametz is now gone. Grapes, whatever, mutter. But the fact that she has to now go shave her head, he can still do hafara at this super late stage in the game. 3-way machlokas tanoim. Shchita is on the earlier side. We'll see soon why in the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva. The Tanakama was of the opinion that once Rikas Hadam happened, because that's when all the restrictions stop. And then the one who's seemingly more makbid on appearance, because really, yes, you do need to shave your head, and it's be'etzem adin, but it's not a restriction anymore. We're beyond restrictions now. Afal Pikein, Reb Meir says, or Rebbe says, Yefshi be'isha megalachas. Chassidim don't hold stark at this one. The Rebbitzins are already in the yichud room. They're.
That's also isn't that the not that sorrow more the captive woman at the beginning of. Right? It's also to make her less attractive.
Sure. Right? Sure, we learned about this. For us, Tzatzi Porneha was either grow them out or cut them short. Right.
That's the same.
Yeah.
For sure.
So he's of the opinion that it's not appealing, and therefore, I should say, if he doesn't like it, then he's allowed to do hafara. That's the biggest kula we've seen, that the hafara extends even past the korbanos. But Masnisin, 2 lines from the bottom, Masnisin to lo Rabbi Eliezer. Our Mishnah cannot be like Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Because the Rabbi Eliezer ha'amar tiglachas me'akeves v'chevan delo gilcha asira bechamra v'chevan de'isla nivel matzi mefer. Our Mishnah in its entirety cannot be like Rabbi Eliezer. Why not? Because he holds that the items from which a Nazira is not allowed to benefit from, wine, tumas mace, whatever, that's talui on the shaving of the head. So our Mishnah, by definition, cannot be in the camp of Rabbi Eliezer, because anyone who says that it's around the time of Shechita is wrong. Because by definition, you're always going to be usher from all of these things until you get a haircut. So our Mishnah is not like that. So if it came with Isla Nivel, and since she's restricted herself from wine all the way until the actual haircut, Matzi Mefer Ubaha Pligi. This is what they are arguing about. We'll learn till the Mishnah. Tana Didan, the Tana Kama of our Mishnah, Savar. Kevandis Dorak Aladam Altar Sharia Bechamra V'Hales Le'Nivel. Instantly, the second Zrikas Adam takes place, she can have a cup of wine, Bore Priagofen. All is fine and good. And therefore, less Le'Nivel. And the Tanakama holds that the husband's capacity to be Mayfair is only true if there's Nivel. And there's no Nivel anymore because she's allowed to drink the wine. So all is fine and good. The Rabbi Akiva Savar, this was the sheet we didn't understand. You want to tell me that as the line in the sand is going to be Zrikas Adam because she's no longer restricted from wine, I understand. You want to tell me Rabbi Eliezer camp that until she gets a haircut, she's going to be restricted in wine, Isla Nivel, I got it, no problem. But the oddball Shita was Rabbi Akiva, who says Shchita. Shchita is not a matir for anything. Nothing until the Zrikas Adam is done. She's still Asura. So why can't he be Mefer? Rabbi Akiva Savar Afilu Ishtechitas Behema, even with the Shchita, Eno Yachval Hafer Mishum Hefsid Kodshim. Unbelievable. He said, you're not, what is that? Mine Yishmid Eitzel Harzina. But he says that that's the din. You're not allowed to be Mayfair, because even though Islam Nivul, even though your wife is restricted from wine, and by you, that's unacceptable, but you're not allowed to be Mafsid Kodshim. So if she does the Shchita, and you say the husband, I'm being Mayfair your Nazirus, they'll stop. The Kohen say, you can't do that. You can't do that. Why not? Not because of your wife, but because of the Kodshim. It's totally a side din. It's a side din. It has nothing to do with Nazirus. Maybe we should ask Ladina if he is Mayfair. Does it actually work? We should ask, like, what's the din b'di'evet? But
should they use that carbon for something else?
Maskifla Rav Zera ve'amai. Why would you say that this kodshim is unusable? Lizro kdaman shelo lishman. You should throw the zrikas hadam. Yes, you're right. The husband did hafara on this korban of nazirus for his wife, and therefore it might appear right now, right after the shchita, that that it's hefsid kodshim. But what we should do, here's our loophole. This is what text was hinting to. We should do the zrikas hadam shelo lishman v'yater baser be'achila. You don't have to lose the kodshim. I have a workaround. Do the zrikas hadam shelo lishman and eat it. If it works. Milo Tanya, don't we have a brisa like this already? Kivsei atzeres, the korbanos that are brought on Shavuos, sheshachtan shelo lishman, or sheshachtan lifnei zman, and they're brought early. O la'achar zman hadam yizrak ve'abasar yochal. Great, Givaldik, we have our answer. The brisa continues. V'imhaisa Shabbos lo yizrak v'imzarak hurtza lahakterei murin le'erev. We're still Lamaisa, if you did the shchita, if you did the zrika, you're still allowed to benefit from this animal. So why over here is Rabbi Akiva throwing the yellow flag and say, it's hefsid kodshim? Why? Go do zrika sadam, and it's mutter b'di'evet. Why wouldn't you say that? So says the Gemara, a third of the way down, Amre, either shachat o lo shlamim, hachanami. I agree with you. You're talking about an ola or shlamim, that you can do that. But that's not the first korban that's brought. The first korban that's brought is achatas, and by achatas you cannot have the zrika shelo lishman. Elahacha b'mayaskinon kigon sheshachar chatas bereisha kiditznan, as the Mishnah writes. And really, the quote of the Mishnah that we see here omits the part that we need. We don't even have it here, but it's found later in the Gemara in another 20 blot from now in Gileach. Al achas mishlashtan yatzos. Again, this line has nothing to do with the chatas, but a part of that brayso over there says that the chatas was brought first. So it says the Gemara to answer for Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva would agree with you if the animal we're talking about is Oler Shlamim. But the first animal that's brought is the chatas, and Rabbi Akiva says that's hefsid kodshim. You want to bring a loophole? Zrikas adam shelo lishman. It doesn't work by a chatas. It only works by Oler Shlamim. Therefore, Rabbi Akiva forbids it. Granted, it's a tangential side reason, but it's enough for him. He says it's sufficient to not allow the husband to do hafara. I would imagine din b'di'evet that if the husband did hafara, that it works for the isha, and the animal would be hefsid kodshim. It probably works mechanically, but we don't allow it. It's not the right way to do things. A husband should not do hafara after shlita because of hefsid kodshim, according to Rabbi Akiva. We had said in our Mishnah, the next 4 lines is a quote. We had said that our Mishnah, the machlokes between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Akiva, was about tiglachas tahara, the haircut that's at the end of the nazirus. Aval b'tiglachas tuma, but if she became tmei in the midst of her nazirus and she's getting her haircut after the tuma, then yafer, mipnei sheyachal omar yef she b'isha minaveles. Fine, because she's still restricted from wine. Because he says that I don't want my wife to have a shaved head. I don't like the way that it looks. So Rabbi Meir wanted to say that we still had this leniency of even after the fact, because I don't want her to get a haircut. I have a Tanna Kama. We have a great solution. Amar lach efshar b'pei nachris. The Tanna Kama, why didn't you use the same argument as Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir said if a husband doesn't like that his wife is shaving her head, he's allowed to be mayfair. So why didn't the Tanna Kama use the same excuse? He doesn't like the way that it looks. This says the Gemara, because the Tanna Kama would say that excuse doesn't work when you have a sheitel. That's what a pei nachris is in the learning world. Pei is the corner of hair, right? And a nachris is foreign. So pei nachris is a sheitel, even in modern parlance. That's how we get in the post game. You'll see it that way. I remember I had a student who got divorced like 10 minutes after she got married. Disaster. And she wanted to. She didn't want to cover her hair because she was super young, and it makes it difficult in dating. And at the time, I was learning in the mornings in the Choshen Mishpah Kola, not in the Kola, but in the same room. Very hard to learn in that room because the conversations were awesome. But anyways, she called me terrible divorce, whatever. And I spoke to Rabbi Cohen. I said, this girl doesn't want to, she doesn't want to cover her hair anymore. She's not an erva anymore. She's single. She's single. So he said, Ayin Sham and Igros Moshe showed me 2 tshuvas. He said, you read them and then come back to me. And if they apply, we'll give her the kula. So this was the language. It's pe'anachris. It's this exact language. So that's it's uncovered her hair. Uncovered her hair. But I don't remember all the details. It was a long time ago. We're of Meir.
Perfect timing.
Where's Mrs. Karesh when you need her?
Yeah, I have her number. I think we should call her.
Let it be. Let it go.
It's the Daf Yomi room.
That's right. Except that it's on Zoom and on YouTube for posterity. That's right. So the Maisa, if it's true that a Pei Nachris works, then the kasha gets thrown back to Rabbi Meir. If you're going to tell me that a Pei Nachris is a good excuse, it's good to solve the problem of the wife who has no hair, then why does Rabbi Meir get to employ it? It's either workable or it's not. So it says the Gemara, fundamentally, there's a machlokas in Tanakam Rameir. Rameir Savar Pei Nachris, I did the Zuama lo nicha. Everybody knows a sheitel is a sheitel. Unless your mama is a goy, then you don't know that a sheitel is a sheitel. But when we walk into anywhere, you go into shul, sheitel, no sheitel, pulling out the hair in front of the sheitel, everybody knows in 5 seconds what's going on. It's crystal clear. So Rameir says that's not, and our sheitels are gishmak. Their sheitels are not gishmak. By the way, we have some not gishmak sheitels today, but back in the day, they had nothing to compare. Human hair of the highest quality. It's unbelievable what we have nowadays. My wife has gone through security with the styrofoam necks that hold the sheitel, and we've had people in TSA like, oh, my mom has one of those in the basement, like with the pins in it. Other people wear wigs too. We're going to stop right here at this machlokas tonight. We'll pick up with a new Mishnah Yirtzeh Hashem tomorrow night. Wishing you all a beautiful night.
It is interesting to know how the article to find that last